Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel, where I'm always breaking down the hot sports topics of the day. So be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel here to get all of my videos delivered directly to your inbox. I'm continuing my NFL playoff previews and predictions. And up next is the AFC Divisional round matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos received the bye in the first round, #1 seed heading into the AFC playoffs. The Ravens, the 4 seed, took care of business at home against the Colts in the wild card round. So we have our stage set. Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos. Okay, 3 surefire Hall of Famers here in Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Peyton Manning for Denver. Maybe even mix in a little Champ Bailey there as a Hall of Famer, but that's another discussion. Baltimore comes into this game by way of beating the Colts last week in a very workman's-like effort in the wild card round. I thought it was a game that offensively in the first half, they were really lackluster and came out flat, but they picked it up in the second half. You saw Ray Rice cure those fumbling problems. You saw Joe Flacco hit some deep passes down the field, and Anquan Boldin have an absolutely stellar game. If you think about it, 24-9 was the final score of that game. Had it not been for those very uncharacteristic Ray Rice fumbles, where it looked like the Ravens were going to be driving to score both times, that game could have gotten well out of hand. But 24-9, the defense played extremely well against a Colts team that was largely inexperienced in the playoffs. The Ravens defense is still one that worries me against this Broncos offense, only because the Broncos offense can beat you by the pass or by the run. And the Ravens have showed this year that they are susceptible to both when they play good teams. So I worry a little bit about the Ravens defense from that perspective. But as far as the Ravens defense goes, you saw when they have Suggs, Nada, Reed, and Lewis on the field at the same time, it gives that defense a different aura. And I think you saw that against the Colts. And I think the Ravens will play a lot better than people think at Mile High against the Broncos. I actually don't think the defensive side of the ball is where the Ravens are going to have trouble. Where I worry about the Ravens is on the offensive side of the ball. They've been very inconsistent on that side of the ball this year. Early on, it was not getting Ray Rice the ball enough. Then you throw in some periods where Flacco is inconsistent. And to me, they've yet to really be clicking on all cylinders on offense. And that's something I worry about facing the Broncos. Because you figure, even if the Ravens defense plays great, at worst, I see the Broncos scoring 24 points in this game. Can the Ravens match that 24 points against the Broncos defense, which is also a stellar unit with the pass rushers they have, with the athletic linebackers they have? Will the Ravens on offense be able to put up enough points? That's where the questions lie for me. If you look against the Colts, a lot of the plays they hit were deep passes, especially to Bolden in the game against the Ravens. When you have Doomerville and Von Miller rushing from the outside, is Flacco going to have the time to sit in there and let those routes develop? I think that's going to be a major part of this game. Can the Ravens offensive line give Flacco enough time on those deep passes, to really let Flacco unload them down the field to Torrey Smith, to Anquan Boldin, and will it be a difference maker in the game? Ray Rice, of course, is the central point of the Ravens offense. When he gets going, the whole offense gets going. It sets up the play-action pass, and it does wonders for them. Can they establish Ray Rice early? That's another thing I think the Ravens will try to do, to try to keep those defensive ends for the Broncos at bay. Very few teams have one guy that can disrupt the whole game via the pass rush, and the Broncos have 2. So I think that's a huge factor heading into this game for the Ravens offense. As far as the Broncos go, the Broncos on offense, they're going to come out and they're going to surprise you if you haven't seen them play much this year with a more balanced attack than you think. You think Peyton Manning, pass, pass, pass. You also thought that when he was with the Colts, right? But when Peyton Manning has the running backs at his disposal, he does use them. He realizes the importance of a running game. They've had McGahee go over 100 yards in some games this year. They've had Moreno go over 100 yards in some games this year. And remember, this Broncos offensive line is the same one that last year, with Tim Tebow at quarterback, had those games where they were rushing for 200-300 yards at a pop when everyone in the whole stadium knew they were going to run the ball. So you have a very capable offensive line. You have capable running backs, not to mention, obviously, Manning, okay, who comes in clicking on all cylinders on this long winning streak with his new team. Remember, at one time, the Broncos were 2-3 earlier this season, and they've rattled off all these wins in a row. Manning's rapport with his receivers has been great, whether it be with Decker, whether it be with Demaryius Thomas, or his tight ends that he uses as well. You see this offense growing here. I think some other things that will be an advantage for the Broncos, some outside things will be the crowd noise, will be the altitude, an emotional environment in a playoff game. The Ravens coming off of an emotional game last week at home. Ray Lewis is most likely his last home playoff game. Now we know it will be his last home playoff game. How do they come out in the altitude? The Broncos are already used to that altitude. Look for Peyton Manning to play into that a little bit and get going at a little bit of a faster tempo early on. The Broncos being well rested, crowd behind them, altitude, look for that to be a factor. The Broncos on defense, they're just relentless. Okay, they come at you with two of probably the top 10 pass rushers in the NFL in Von Miller and Elvis Dumervil. They have a capable back end as well, which is made to be even better because of the pass rush they put on. Their defense, again, a very underrated part of their team because of the presence of Peyton Manning and the attention that the offense gets. Again, the Broncos defense last year, a lot of the same parts from a team that won 8 games, okay, with Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow as their quarterbacks, okay, and looking at, you know, that whole situation a year later, I think you begin to respect more of the Broncos offensive line and the Broncos defense. And they've continued that good play into this season. Von Miller's been tremendous, okay? Their defensive line has been tremendous. And I look for them to get to Flacco early and often and for that to be a real big factor in this game. I also, special teams-wise, I look at these two teams as being even. So I don't look for any decided advantage there. I think both teams are capable of big returns. I don't look for any turnovers to be a really big issue on the special team side of the ball against something that could really sway a game. In this game, I like the Ravens -9 against the Broncos. I like the Broncos to win outright, but I like the Ravens -9 to keep this game a lot closer than people think. I think that the Broncos, I look for a score around, let's say, 28-21. I think that's the kind of game we're going to see here because I don't think Denver's going to score 34, 37 points, but I don't really look at the Ravens being able to score more than 21. So we look at there, 28-21, let's say. Definitely Ravens -9. Sorry, Ravens +9 against the Broncos in the AFC Divisional round, but for the Broncos to win outright. Be sure to check my other previews here on YouTube. Be sure to check out my other videos. And as always, subscribe to my page and catch me on Twitter too, @SNewsAnalysis. Thanks, guys.